Hello everybody and welcome back to the Prince of Persia 2008 walkthrough. It's time for us to continue heading through the City of Light and continue expelling the warrior from this place. We've got another tower to go to right now, although saying that it's a tower, the actual fertile ground getting to it and stuff is really not that long.
It isn't my tower. It is dedicated to the women who ruled here.
Arguably going to be one of the shortest we're ever going to face, I think.
So this was a city before Armin tried to take over the first
It's
time around.
rather bizarre, to be honest, but it means more wonderful time afterwards to do various things.
Ready to go on, Elika?
So, we get to have some fun with the Breath of Mars, although it can be a little bit mean in at least one of the things we're going to have to face. It's either this one or the tower on the other side. I think it's the tower on the other side where you've got a Breath of Mars up in a very, very, very quick fashion, kind of like up to the right, and the timing is really bizarre. It's quite cool though, so can't complain too much. Now, you can kind of hopefully see why I do prefer Breath of Mars to a lot of the other powers, because it just feels slightly more involving, even though it kind of isn't, because you kind of are moving him along the wall in terms of the left and right. I don't know, for some bizarre reason it feels more interactive than the others. It kind of maybe isn't, but it feels like it is, so I will say that it is. And we're up at the top, and there is the warrior. Wonderful. Now, it's at this point that the warrior fights, well, some of the warrior fights get a little bit more difficult, because you have only got one very, very small area through which you can boot the warrior out, because he won't go down otherwise. Although this is going to be quite hilarious, because really this shouldn't work because I'm pushing him against a wall, but he went through the floor, and that was quite impressive. I think quite an impressive glitch. It wasn't something I was quite expecting, but it was funny all the same. And that is another fertile ground healed. We only have 2 more to go. Blimey heck.
That's another step closer.
I've never known a queen. Not up close and personal.
You still don't.
Will you ease up on yourself? I know things haven't been too... Your mother's not here. Your father's having problems. But you're the one risking your life to put things right. Your mother would be proud of you. Oh, look, forget it.
Thank you.
Don't thank me. Just cheer up, Queenie. You're doing a good job.
You too. I just hope your mother doesn't find out about the tomb robbing and the priestesses. The donkeys and the...
Hey, you know, boys will be boys.
Aww, Bless them.
My father is all that is
Although,
left.
now we go into slightly more serious conversation after that rather really sweet moment.
None of that matters. The past
It's
doesn't
kind of...
matter.
I
Until
mean,
Laura is dead, nothing matters.
I don't quite know how it works.
The past never matters. But that
If you
doesn't
come
stop
to the warrior earlier,
excuse to do something stupid.
I mean, you can, but
Shall we go and liberate your town
it kind of makes
before we end up as history?
more sense here, because their relationship has kind of evolved to fit this at this point, and it's just really nice. Now, as we begin our slightly prolonged search for all the light seed in this area, there is something I would like to talk about. It's not kind of the most wonderful of things in the world. It's the Prince of Persia, the Sons of Time film that came out, because it's Prince of Persia related. I've brought it up a few times, but never really gone into much detail in the grand scheme of things. And really, it just works. It's a nice topical thing. So, the Prince of Persia, the Sands of Time film came out in 2010, as I've said multiple times, I think. And it had Jake Gyllenhaal as Prince Dastan, aka the Prince, because really he should just be called the Prince. But saying that, he's never really called the Prince in Prince of Persia 2008 here. It's just kind of what he's kind of sort of nicknamed. Not really, but either way. Then Gemma Arterton as Princess Tamina, Ben Kingsley as Nizam, and Alfred Molina as Sheikh Amar, or whatever. And basically, it has the same title as the Prince of Persia Sands of Time video game, which is what it's primarily based on. So, Princess Tamina is basically Farah and things like that. But then the film also took elements from Warrior Within and The Two Thrones. And you can kind of see that in the kind of costume that they went with for the prince. And kind of sort of generally in the way that the poster's designed as well. Unfortunately, as is commonly the case, it received mixed reviews from critics and fans alike. And at the box office it technically failed domestically. I think that they put in a budget that was slightly too excessive. But then it kind of eventually became the highest grossing film based on a video game. I'm not sure whether it has been beaten since then, but considering the general lack of films based on video games that have been released theatrically since 2010, and in general, I wouldn't be surprised if that's still the limit. Now, kind of my response to the film as a whole is that it was alright. I mean, it was enjoyable. It kind of had elements of the Prince of Persia franchise in it. It was reasonably entertaining. And even kind of critics kind of agreed that even if it's flawed, it was a lot better than what was pretty common video game adaptation fare. Because obviously there are a lot of video game film adaptations which are just pants, and some of them are particularly infamous in their awfulness. Thankfully, we seem to be reaching a point where we can actually get something good out of these things. because obviously there's the Ratchet and Clank film coming, there's the Sly Cooper film coming. I seem to recall hearing about a Heavenly Sword film, which looks good. I think it may have already come out somehow, somewhere, but that was interesting. Obviously, as of recording this commentary, it was recently announced that Sonic the Hedgehog movie may or may not be happening, which may or may not end terribly, considering the state of that franchise at present. But kind of films like Wreck-It Ralph have kind of shown that you can quite definitely use video games as a source for narratives. Well, a source for things to deal with, and you can work it quite well. We just haven't had a video game film that used the game's narrative successfully just yet. I'm sure we'll get there eventually. It's just probably going to take quite a while. Now, just a little tiny thing about the Prince of Persia film is that it has the third highest opening for a video game adaptation at the box office, or at least it did, behind Lara Croft's Tomb Raider and Pokemon the First Movie, which is pretty awesome. And basically it has a total worldwide gross of $335,154,643, which is what makes it the highest grossing video game adaptation ever worldwide. But it was not successful at all in the United States and failed to gross its budget there. So, yeah, it wasn't the most well conceived of productions.
What's the best way?
So, that pretty much covers all thoughts I have about that film.
No.
What can you see?
And we get a cutscene here, which I didn't want to show off, but it kind of happened without realising it was going to happen.
Fertile ground is...
Hey, stop! You must be...
What? Upset? Devastated?
angry. I don't know how you've held it together this far, but you need to keep holding it together or both of us are dead.
Have you finished understanding me?
I know you've lost things, and that makes your life feel worth less. But if you don't value your life, it's like you don't really care about the things you lost.
Oh, that's pretty fine speech for someone who doesn't care about anything.
Well, it should be a fine speech. Cost me 2 silver pieces from a fortune teller in Babylon. Keep the anger, Princess. Stay alive, and let's find something you can hit.
So, yeah, basically, if you, in any way, exit the Queen's Tower or the Tower of Mars on the side of the City of Light, then you will get that cutscene. It's slightly frustrating, because obviously I would have preferred that to happen after we got to the end of the Tower of Mars, which is going to be our third one, which is going to lead neatly into our final fertile ground. But we can't have everything. I'd rather have the light seeds, to be honest.
1,000 years must have made them a little rusty. Ready to go down?
Well, 1,000 years is a very long time not to have any battle training. It's why characters like Bayonetta end up a little bit rusty after a 500-year sleep at the bottom of a lake. You just lose all your skills. which, to be perfectly honest, makes a lot more sense than some games' excuses as to why you can't do certain things. I think I always seem to recall the Metroid Prime games being a perfect example of that issue. Except I've never played them, so I can't really comment. But essentially, like in Metroid Prime 2, the excuse for Samus not having her powers from the first game is essentially she tripped and lost it all, or she got hit by something and that buggered everything up. Which is just a bit lazy in terms of storytelling, really. Now, this is kind of something that it's not really the type of thing that I would normally bring up, but you may have been noticing bits of screen tearing throughout this game, and I say it's certainly more noticeable in recording than it is when you're actually playing the game, but it kind of does just show the unfortunate thing that does happen to games sometimes. I mean, I seem to recall that there are certain bits of Bayonetta which screen tear quite badly, and I think that game runs pretty damn smoothly. On the 360 more so than the PS3, because obviously that port was awful. But I think the Prince of Persia 2008 is pretty equal across both systems, so that's quite nice, if that is indeed the case. It's been a very long time since I've checked it out. And now I have lost 2 light seeds. Ah. Now, if I recall correctly, they're slightly evil in their location, because it requires you to drop down into an area where you wouldn't really expect anything to be. Like, you can maybe just about see them on the ceiling there. I'm not a fan of the location of these ones. So, after running about like a lunatic for a while, if you run up to the edge here, you can see that there is a ring. Which leads us to our final 2 light seeds for this area. So that is the Queen's Tower complete, and it is time for us to head on over to the Tower of Ormans for our penultimate fertile ground. Let's do this.